European or American colonialism, that everything goes back to that core idea, and that even things like, let's say in India, widow burning could be connected to colonialism. Even things like honor killing could be connected to colonialism. Everything had to do with this sort of one lens with which you could understand an extremely complicated thing. And then the second part, and this is again, like, I think oftentimes this is the case. If you know something about one particular topic, like let's say a lot about it, and you don't know a lot about Saudi Arabia or Iran or any of the other places you're studying, but you know a lot about this one place. And for me, that was Israel. And you hear that what you're being taught about it is so out of line with reality, then you start being skeptical about everything else the person is saying. And that was very much the case with me, that, first of all, Israel's one of, dozens of countries in the Middle East, but it was obsessed on in the course. And the one text we were asked to read about this complicated, very interesting place with a history that goes back thousands of years, which is the cradle of Western civilization, was a book by a guy called Maxime Rodinson. I recommend people look it up, called Israel, a Zionist colonial settler state, ? And suffice it to say, the question mark was superfluous. And everything was just sort of driving toward I felt the political view of the professor that was teaching the course, whereas, in contrast, the philosophy course that I was describing to you, or even I'm thinking about an intellectual history class that I took, I didn't really know what my professor thought. And we were always obsessed with, like, what do they really think? And that made it, it just felt like they were trying to, as much as possible, remove their own views to teach texts and ideas to us in the most capacious way possible. Now, it turns out with the intellectual history course, that professor is now on Twitter, and I see what he thinks. And it's very much, not my view of the world, but I really admire the fact that I didn't know that when I took his class, and that I was able to sort of come to my own positions without feeling like, if I wasn't parroting what he said, that I would somehow be punished. Whether it was, in the grade that I received, or in the seminar section part of the lecture course. So to me, that's a really important distinction.
Okay, so there's a couple of things there that I think might be worth highlighting, or they strike me as worth highlighting anyways. Is I wrote a chapter in my last book, which is Beyond Order, called Abandoned Ideology. And one of the propositions that makes up the argument in that chapter is that you have to beware of unifactorial explanations for complex phenomena. Is that if you look at anything, perhaps you might look at the wage gap, say, between men and women, the purported wage gap. Well, the probability that there's one reason that occurs, well, first of all, you have to ask the question to begin with, is the gap real? There's a measurement issue there. And so you can take that apart, because you don't have to accept the proposition that the phenomena even exists to begin with. That happens in psychology all the time, where people will use a term in common parlance, but not necessarily be able to translate that into some, like, objective